Hate to say I told you so, so I'm not going to. But essentially, the last video that I made, half the people in the comment section got very upset. I guess people feel that I'm talking bad about Steve Kerr, and they just have an automatic problem with that. And it's just funny to me, some of the logic that is thrown at me. My favorite one is, oh, well, this guy's an NBA coach. You're not an NBA coach. What do you know? Why should we listen to you instead of this guy? And it's like, why do people pretend that NBA coaches are incapable of being flawed or making mistakes? Coaches get fired all the time, and coaches are criticized all the time. Look at Doc Rivers, man. He's a joke. Around the league, people look at him as a joke. That's a guy that won a title. So if you want to talk about, well, everybody else is not a coach and Doc Rivers is a coach, why should you have a say about anything that guy does? How do you think that you know more about the game of basketball than that guy does? I don't see anybody using that kind of logic about anybody else. But if it's about Steve Kerr, suddenly, cannot talk about Steve Kerr ever. That guy can do no wrong. Hey guys, you might want to take a look at what's happened the last 5 years with this guy being the head coach of the Warriors. They missed the playoffs 3 times, 1 championship, and a second round exit. And by the way, in that second round exit, there were multiple people in the media saying the same things that I was saying about how Steve Kerr was failing to utilize the pick and roll. JJ Redick and Tim Legler are literally having a podcast begging the Warriors to run more pick and rolls because they get the most effective plays out of that action. Stan Van Gundy is literally on air calling the game and begging for Steve Kerr to run more pick and rolls. Somebody over at CBS wrote multiple articles about how Steve Kerr was at fault for losing the series against the Lakers, losing multiple games against that team, talking about game 1. Oh, well, this was kind of a feel-out game for us. It's a home game. You had home court advantage, and you failed to take care of home court advantage in the name of a feel-out game in the second round. A feel-out game is what you do in Game 4 of the season, not in the second round of the playoffs. What are we talking about? You should be in full gear and know exactly what you need to do to be successful against the team that you're facing. Who do all these people think they are questioning Steve Kerr? And look, I said this last night and I want to say it again. I have no desire to talk about Steve Kerr. I want to talk about Warriors basketball. I want to talk about the players in it, what's going right, what's going wrong, and some of the things that Steve Kerr can fix up to more optimize the situation that they have. Instead, the guy has completely reverted to what he's been doing over the years, including last season. And it's insane because the Warriors have shown a blueprint on how to dominate this season in the first 11 games. And then Steve Kerr said, nah, I don't feel like dominating anymore. I want to go back to methodical offense where nobody is in rhythm and it's going to risk losing games because other teams will get into rhythm and the Warriors will be out of rhythm, and then the game's going to go down to the wire, and then there's going to be problems because Steph Curry's off the ball and he's not going to be in rhythm because you're pretty much using him like JJ Redick. Not even, because Steph Curry is just chilling in the motion offense. The motion offense is built for anybody and everybody but Steph Curry. Steve Kerr has acknowledged that. Steph Curry has acknowledged that. And that's fine. But just add a few segments of Curry-centric offense and balance it out with the motion and you'll be fine. The Warriors had a 17-point lead against the Spurs. If you had a couple of Steph Curry segments, like a 2-minute flurry here and there, the game would have been over. They would have had a 20-plus point lead and then wouldn't have come to this. There's another problem with the motion offense, and it's that it's really a system that is designed for incredibly skilled players and just super vets that have been there and done that and understands all the know-hows of how to play the game of basketball and react perfectly in this situation and that situation, and that's from 1 through 5. If you're not good at these things, you are not going to survive in a Steve Kerr offense. So if you're a young guy and you're kind of either undisciplined or you're still learning the game or something like this, forget it. You can't play this system. Look at all the young players that have been on the team over the years. James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, now Pods, and even Trace to a lesser extent, right? So when you're talking about a system that even Steph Curry tends to struggle in, we've seen the last 2 games. He's been off ball pretty much the whole game. And then when the game was on the line and there were all these clutch situations, he wasn't in rhythm to do what he normally does. It doesn't matter if you are Steph Curry or Michael Jordan, you have to have the ball throughout the course of the game to understand that the feeling of how to dominate this team at some point. If you're not doing that at any point of the game, and shit hits the fan the way it has the last 2 games, well, you see how the Warriors are struggling and they don't know who to go to. And like I said last night, I've been seeing the patterns ever since Steve Kerr went back to the motion starting from the Grizzlies game. And you got to understand something. I have been watching this offense operate for so many years. I pretty much understand how things are going to play out before they actually happen. That's why I'm able to give you guys 4 warnings about what's to come if they continue in this trajectory. And there's a really simple fix to making sure that the Warriors are back to playing great offense. And that is to go back to what they were doing in the first 11 games when they went 9-2 and beat up teams like the Mavs, OKC, and the Celtics. Let's put the Mavs under the table, but OKC and Celtics are 2 of the best teams in the entire league. It is completely senseless for Steve Kerr to suddenly be like, oh, well, let's just save that for certain games only. What are we talking about? If you want to be a truly dominant team and you want to make sure that the Warriors win easily winnable games like tonight against the Spurs, like the game against the Pelicans last night, and even a game against the team like the Clippers, if the Warriors maximize what they do offensively and take advantage of mismatches that are on the other side and just do it even a reasonable amount of times, right? The Warriors will be fine. The other thing that Steve absolutely has to do is stop running the small forwards at the power forward spots. This is where they keep losing momentum. Late in that third quarter, he put Wiggins at the power forward spot, and that just wasn't working for the team. Defensively, they lost a lot of momentum. I've been saying this for the last 3 years, I feel like. Andrew Wiggins is not a power forward. Just like Kuminga is not a power forward. It's like Kuminga missed this game, right? So now Steve's like, oh, okay, well, now I'm going to stick Wiggins in there. And it's funny because Sam Mitchell is Andrew Wiggins' former coach in Wiggins' earlier years with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And he is working with NBA TV right now. And he actually said on broadcast that, in his opinion, Andrew Wiggins' best position is the shooting guard. That's why he liked Wiggins at the shooting guard spot, because he's 6'7" and has a size advantage over a lot of shooting guards, but not necessarily against the small forwards and bigger guys of the league. And he brought up the wiry, smallish frame that Wiggins has. It's not built like somebody who can play the power forward position. He is built to play the perimeter. He is a wing player specifically. And Steve Kerr, for whatever reason, just insists on continuing to run these guys, not being able to identify these guys' positions and just running them all over the place and thinking that that's okay. And it's not. So this is where they started to lose momentum. And then you get to the fourth quarter. At least he put out a bigger lineup this time. It was Trace at the center spot and Slo-Mo at the power forward spot. But they're just pretty much running the motion offense, and Potts and Moody just can't get anything going in this type of offense. They need specific plays run where they can be fully taken advantage of in terms of where they thrive. You know, Potts is not a great pick and roll player, but he's certainly going to be better running a pick and roll with the ball in his hands to at least have him be in some kind of rhythm than just be in the motion offense. What is he going to do there? Unless he's running with Steph and having a lot of space to work with, he doesn't really have an advantage there, especially with his shot looking the way it has. And Moody is also, you know, he's a decent player, but he's an imperfect player when you talk about kind of having him fit into this motion offense thing. And I just don't understand why the shift happened. Why did it go from Terry Stotts' offense, where things were going amazingly, back to the old antiquated tyrannical college system where nobody can be great? What is the logical reason for that shift? Why is that happening? And I don't even want to hear that, oh, we need to give Steph Curry rest. Hey, look at what happens when you run the motion all day. Steph Curry has now had to play 2 straight games, going all the way down to the wire and having to play pressure-packed situations. This isn't saving him. This isn't conserving him at all. In the first 11 games, the guy was tearing up the league, averaging 29 minutes per game. So what are we talking about? He needs a rest. You need to take it easy on him. What are we talking about? Just cannot have a thriving season without Steve Kerr deciding to interject and get in the way, putting a dent on what should be something great. Even last season, it didn't have to turn out the way it did. It was Steve Kerr manufacturing problems out of thin air that just didn't need to happen. Like Chris Paul did not need to close all those games next to Steph Curry, forcing Steph Curry to the 2, and Klay Thompson is at the 3, and you basically have no defense to close a game, and you wonder why they're losing all these clutch games by 1 point, 2 point, 3 points. We didn't have to watch Dario Saric play the 5 for 60 plus games while Trace is rotting on the bench. You know, Steve Kerr is just a master of sub-optimization. Like, this guy absolutely goes against the grain of what works and decides to just go away from it. He does it regularly. Somebody gets on fire, makes 2 to 3 straight shots, and then Kerr decides to bench that player. He literally ices out his own players. We've seen it over and over and over again over the years. And it's really a shame that the Warriors blew this game. Just they had no business losing to this team. This should have been an absolute and utter easy victory. They had a 17-point lead, and it was just blown just like that. All momentum went back to the Spurs, and the Warriors could never catch a rhythm to get back into this. And I'm telling you, this is what happens when Steph Curry's ice cold and it basically hasn't really touched the ball or even dribbled the ball all that much through the first 3 quarters. Anybody who's played the game of basketball and understands the power of rhythm should understand this. And what a shame, because Andrew Wiggins had another incredible start to this game. And it's great that he's coming out and being super aggressive. But again, something that I mentioned yesterday, it's kind of backwards when Steph Curry is taking a complete back seat to Andrew Wiggins and essentially turning Andrew Wiggins into the number 1 option, at least for the first half of games. Because Curry is agreeing to this casual style of play where his teammates have to be overly relied upon because he ain't doing jack squat. Ultimately, it's Steve Kerr's idea and system, so it's on him, but Steph Curry, as the leader of this team, has to speak up or just break the offense at some point and just be like, okay, no, I'm going to go off. And notice too, despite Wiggins coming out to that really hot start, he couldn't keep it up for the entire game. And that's why I am saying that using Andrew Wiggins as if he's like the number 1 option, well, that's not a good idea and that's not fair to him. Do you guys know how much Steph Curry gets paid? He gets paid $56 million this season. He's not getting that much money so that he can chill for the first half of most games. You know, we've been discussing various problems that the Warriors, and more minorish problems that the Warriors could tweak and fix here and there to completely optimize what they've been doing. And through all those discussions, I never sounded any alarms because at the end of the day, I knew that their structure, both offensively and defensively, were in place. But now it's been broken, and now they're just relying more on defense, which is still pretty good. I mean, they held the Spurs to 38 points at halftime. The problem is the Warriors only scored 50 points themselves by halftime. And when you're holding the other team to 38 points, I mean, that should be a blowout. You should have scored 60 points. That should have been a 22-point lead going into the half. And this should have been such an easy victory. And again, that's how they were playing in the first 11 games. And they've stopped. So this truly is on nobody but Steve Kerr. If you don't agree with that, that's fine. But that's just the truth. It is what it is. And if you look at the schedule that's coming up for the Warriors, it gets a little iffy if they're going to continue to play this kind of style offensively. All this work that they did to have this amazing record, 12-3, well, now it's 12-4, and it's going to get undone pretty quickly if they continue to run this kind of offense. Steve Kerr needs to fix up. Terry Stotts and Jerry Stackhouse need to speak up, have a discussion with him, and be like, hey man, what are you doing? Why are we completely going away from what's been working for this team? And when they did it, they were the best team in the league. They started the season 9-2. Now they're 3-2 in their last 5 games. Same thing for the leaders of this team, Steph and Draymond. They need to speak up on this. They all need to collectively speak up and realize that what they're doing is not okay. At least if they want to be a truly contending team this season and have home court advantage and all these things that a truly great team would have. You know, the more people, the fans, the media, the more we recognize these things and talk about it and speak it into existence, the more pressure you'll put on Steve Kerr to do the right things because we're all paying attention to it and we are all not okay with this. But it's going to be harder to do if a bunch of fans are like conforming to it and just accepting it and making excuses on behalf of Steve Kerr. Oh, but he won 4 championships. What does that have to do with what they're trying to do this season? Nothing. I can't believe we're back on this energy. I was so excited watching them play such a different style. Terry Stotts is a genius. And you know, in a recent podcast that Draymond Green did, he talked about with Baron Davis how Terry Stotts is the offense. He said Terry Stotts is the offense after the win against the Mavericks.
Hey, y'all got Stackhouse Stouts over there. He an offensive mastermind. Yeah. Hey, bro, y'all got some dogs over there.
Well, what the additions that they've made this coaching staff, Stotts, like you said, he's an offensive mastermind, and it's his offense.
Okay. And after that, actually, is when Steve Kerr flipped and changed the offense. Think about it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.